Hello everyone and welcome to my free-to-play Kazuha build guide. In this video I will be showing you how to build Kazuha, what team comps he is good in, and if you should wish for him. To start off the video, I'm going to be showcasing a hybrid build for Kazuha, where you can see what his damage looks like, what he does for the team, and kind of what his abilities look like in combat. Both Kazuha's elemental skill and elemental burst can pick up an additional elements off of the field or on Kazuha that's afflicting him to be applied to his skills. Kazuha has 3 passive abilities. He's able to decrease his party's stamina consumption when sprinting by 20%. The next passive allows him to combine an element into his skill and burst. His final passive allows him to grant elemental damage bonus to the rest of his team when he swirls an element. This elemental damage bonus gives 0.04 elemental damage bonus for every point of elemental mastery that you have built on Kazuha. My Mona has a hydro damage bonus of 79%. If I swirl Hydro, it should go up by about 34% for my 850 Elemental Mastery. If we look now at my Mona, she has a 113.7% Hydro damage bonus. The next question I want to answer is if you should wish for Kazuha. While a lot of different factors might change that answer, such as how many wishes do you already have, or what characters do you already have, I believe that overall he's a very good investment for your wishes. He can do a lot of different things and fit a lot of different roles. For example, his elemental skill allows him to CC, while also doing a large amount of plunging damage. His elemental burst allows him to have a large AoE sit on the field and apply elements for a long period of time while also dealing a large amount of damage. His passive allows him to grant the rest of your team an elemental damage bonus depending on how much elemental mastery you build. From testing different builds on him and looking at his abilities, I can tell that he's able to be played as a main DPS, a sub DPS, and as a support. One reason I might give that you might not want to wish for Kazuha is if you already have a built Venti. While Kazuha and Venti don't have exactly the same abilities and they can sometimes fit different purposes, they also both fit the same role and function in a lot of teams and scenarios, such as in Spiral Abyss when you want to pull enemies together. If this is your goal with Kazuha and you already have Venti, you're good. However, if you still want Kazuha, I totally recommend going for him. He's the most fun I've had with any character, and he does a lot of damage. Next, let's look at Kazuha's Constellations. While I believe that Kazuha can be played on any role as a main DPS, sub DPS, or support, his Constellations give very big advantages to specific roles. His Constellation 1 allows his elemental skill to have a 10% shorter cooldown, while also allowing his elemental skill's cooldown to be completely reset every time he uses his elemental burst. The next important constellation I want to look at is his Constellation 2. His Constellation 2 says that whenever he is using his elemental burst, any character standing inside the ring will have their elemental mastery increased by 200. The next important constellation I want to look at is Constellation 6. Constellation 6 can be a little confusing at first when you read it, but the gist of it is that Constellation 6 allows Kazuha to be a very powerful dedicated main DPS, Whenever he uses his elemental skill or elemental burst, he gains Animo Infusion onto all of his attacks for 5 seconds. Also, all of his elemental mastery, besides being converted into an elemental damage bonus, will also be able to be converted into damage for his normal, charged, and plunging attacks. Because Kazuha can be built as a DPS, sub-DPS, or as a support, there's a lot of confusion over what artifacts and stats you should use. However, through a lot of different trial and error, I've discovered that his best artifact set, no matter what role you're using, is usually Viridescent Veneer. This is for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're obviously getting Animo damage %. But the biggest reason why this is good on every role for him is because the 4-piece set bonus on Viridescent Veneer allows him to shred the resistance of whatever element he infuses in his swirl. This enables any other character on your team to do bonus damage when he swirls, and it also enables Kazuha to do bonus damage when he swirls, because he can take an element and put it into his abilities. When deciding what main stats you want on your Viridescent Veneer artifacts, it's very important to consider what team comp you're using, and as well as what role you want Kazuha to fit into. If you want him to be a full Elemental Mastery support, then I would recommend having Elemental Mastery on the hats, Animo damage on the cup, and Elemental Mastery on the sands. The reason I don't usually recommend having Elemental Mastery on the cup is because if you stack so much Elemental Mastery, upwards of 1,000, instead of Animo damage, you're losing a very large amount of damage that you could be dealing for a very small % of buff in trade-off. Right now, my Kazuha is built as a support. He has full priority in Elemental Mastery, and his weapon adds even more Elemental Mastery. If I want to change him to a main DPS, I can change his hat from Elemental Mastery to crit rate. Another option would also be changing his Elemental Mastery sands into an attack % sands. Also, I can change his weapon from Iron Sting to Festering Desire if I want to do more damage on my elemental skill, as well as Sacrificial Sword if I want to have more chances to use my elemental skill for damage. Both Kazuha's Elemental Mastery build for support and his DPS build can both do a lot of damage depending on your team composition and how you play them. First, I'll show you my full Elemental Mastery Kazuha and how you can deal a lot of damage by combining a lot of different elements. Next, I'll show you my DPS Kazuha using the Festering Desire, as well as a crit rate hat. I hope you found this guide helpful, and if you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments. Thank you for watching.